Hello and welcome to today's video, which is where we're going to be looking at 12 things I've learned in the last decade of being a property investor, buy-to-let landlord and a property investment mentor. So the first thing is that it's okay to pivot. It's okay to change strategies. It's okay to kind of change your plan as you develop and as you grow as a property investor. And as a buy-to-let landlord as well. A lot of people start off in property investing with buy-to-let. That's their main strategy. That's what they think is kind of the right way to go forward. And it's certainly where I started as well. I felt like this was the best strategy. It's the one that made the most money. It's the one that made the most sense. It's the one that had the most kind of demand. And it's what everybody else kind of talked about at the time. What you find is as you develop, you get more experience, more confidence. You look at more areas, more types of properties, more strategies. And very often people develop from becoming a buy-to-let landlord initially when they start out through to becoming more of a developer or looking at other types of strategies, more cash flow rich or high yielding type investments and opportunities, because that fits their kind of model. They get more experience, more confidence in doing those types of deals. But ultimately, it's important to understand that it is okay to pivot. It's okay to change strategies. Don't feel like you're paced into a corner or fixed in terms of doing one particular kind of concept or strategy when you start out. Even if you really love something and it's the right thing for you at that point in time, that's great. But don't worry about changing. If things kind of change, your situation changes, your circumstances changes, there's lots of other opportunities, there's lots of ways to adapt. Okay, number two is I'd suggest to buy in the best area that you can afford and then work all the other criteria back from there. Now, good quality areas stand the test of time. That's why obviously the old adage of kind of location is so popular. That's why people make money in property investment over the long term, even if they don't really know what they're doing when they started out. Obviously you have a kind of a period of time in the early 2000s, people made a lot of money as prices were kind of going up. They could have brought the wrong type of property, they could have looked at the wrong type of tenant profile, but if they brought it in the right area, they would have made money because equity growth, capital growth in that period of time was excessive, so people did well. Now, I'm not saying that's always going to be the case. It's not always going to have significant growth in terms of equity and capital, but if you buy in the best area you can physically afford, that's just going to help you much greater in the long term. And you can always find strategies and criteria that work well in a particular location if you have that as your criteria. So instead of going really low on locations because it's maybe on paper a higher yield, look at the location first, look at the price range that you can afford in first, and then everything else will fit around it. So the strategies, the yields, the tenant profile, there's always opportunities in each area. But if you can afford to buy, or if you look at the best areas you can afford to buy in, you're going to do much better, I believe, in those types of property investments over the long term. Number three, I'd suggest is to work with experts. Don't try and be a one-man band. And this is something that I suffered with when I first started out, is I wanted to do everything myself. So I wanted to do all my own management. I was never good enough to do my own maintenance, but I did do all of that contact with the tenant. I'd go out to a property and make sure if a leaking tap was leaking, and then I'd call a plumber. Or if there was an issue with the door, I'd go out to it and check it. It's like, okay, there's an issue with the door, let's kind of get it sorted. It's just a complete kind of waste of time. But when you're starting out, when you're kind of fresh, enthusiastic, sometimes that's what you want to do. But I'd suggest if you're looking to grow a portfolio, if you're looking to buy, even if it's just one deal, but buy a number of deals, look at trying to work with experts. Don't try and be a one-man band. So work with maintenance teams, work with letting agents, work with mortgage brokers to get the best property, get the best finance out there. Work with property sources, property investment companies, whether that's with ourselves or other companies, to try and get access to other deals that you might not be considered or might not be able to kind of find. But if you work with experts from day one, you'll be able to build it as a proper business. You'll be able to get much more growth, much more scale, and ultimately it should be much more profitable for you than running around like a one-man band trying to kind of do all aspects of it. It's very limiting, that kind of route. It certainly limited my growth when I started out, and very often I see and speak to investors and they're struggling. It's because they're trying to do all of those individual aspects. So I'd certainly recommend working with experts where you can in your property career. Number four is simply ask for help. Very often people are quite gung-ho with challenges or with properties, or quite insular. They don't want to speak to other people about it, and I get that to an extent, because again, I was similar when I first started out. You didn't want to kind of come across as naive, or you didn't have the answer in a particular situation. But property's been around for hundreds, thousands of years. It's not a new concept. Tenants aren't a new concept. Bad development teams aren't a new concept. So somebody will have gone through an experience similar to what you're probably seeing or may see in your property kind of career or journey. So just ask for help. If you have a situation with a bad tenant or a bad refurbishment team, or you're unsure as to what area to buy in or what to consider when you're looking at areas, there is somebody that's gone through that process beforehand. So speak to your peers, speak to colleagues, look for information online, speak to property kind of mentors, go on forums, speak to letting agents, estate agents, all on that side of things. You'll be able to get some very good referrals, and you'll certainly be able to get some very good advice as well in terms of how to tackle certain scenarios. And there's lots of structures that you can use like specific to that situation. So for example, if you have a situation with a bad tenant, I'd recommend signing up with the National Landlords Association. They have a fantastic helpline, a fantastic support system. It's what we use internally with our business when we have difficulty with tenants, as well as liaising with letting agents. But yeah, ask for help. There's plenty of support out there. Number 5 is the only thing I'd really rely on when it comes to your property deals is going to be the cash flow, not the capital gain. So capital gain is fantastic, and it's what a lot of people make their profits from in areas of very high property values. If you consider kind of in the UK, towns or cities like London, for example, property prices are very high, yields are very low. So the income, the profit that people generate on those deals very often is because of a significant element of growth over a period of time. But that is very undefined. You don't know what's going to be around the corner. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. You might need to sell the property quicker than you anticipated or later than you anticipated. And depending on when you sell it, there may or may not have been growth in that area. So the only thing you can really bank on or rely on is going to be that cash flow, that income, that rental from that particular property. Or if you're running like a development type strategy, make sure the figures work on that deal in your current kind of snapshot at time. Don't rely on growth in order for that kind of property to make sense or that property to work. So focus on the kind of the here and now, the cash flow, the income that that property can generate, and have that as one of your main criteria when it comes to seeing if that deal works. So if you combine that with buying in the best area you can afford and making sure that when you buy in that area it has good cash flow, not just reliant on growth, you should do very well with the property investments that you're buying. Okay, number 6 is don't take it personal. There's a lot of things that can kind of happen during your property kind of career and journey. If it were, we've had property for over 10 years now. We've had a number of tenants, situations where tenants have damaged the place or not paid the rent, or there's been kind of fallouts at the property with tenants and neighbours, things like that. But try not to take it personal. It needs to be kind of considered as a business, as an investment. So you need to buy the right type of properties, you need to view it as a business. You can certainly have a personable nature, you can certainly have a relationship with your estate agent, letting agents, mortgage brokers, refurbishment teams, tenants, all of those individual key players in the business. It is a people business, you want to have that connection, but don't take it too personal. If a situation or a scenario goes kind of wrong or against you, or is not the ideal kind of outcome that you'd anticipated, try not to dwell on it, move on. As we said before, kind of ask for help. There's people that have been in that scenario beforehand. And when it comes to things like tenants and stuff as well, if there's a tenant that falls into rent arrears, a tenant that kind of damages the place, again, don't take that personal. It's very often, it's not kind of a negative on how you've dealt the situation or handled the situation. It's just, unfortunately, that can sometimes kind of occur. But if you're in this for the long run, sometimes situations kind of will occur, but it's how you kind of move on and progress from that that's important. Number 7 is doing joint ventures, and this is something that I'd really wish that I'd concentrated on much earlier in my kind of property career and investment journey. When I first started, I was very much about trying to do everything myself, as I mentioned, and certainly buying the properties myself because I felt like I'd get more profit or more ownership of it. Whereas if you do joint ventures, it can really open up the potential opportunities for you. And that's what's led to significant growth personally in my business, is by doing those joint ventures with clients. When we've looked at property deals, it just gives you access to more deals, access to more funds to do different types of deals. So if you're getting started in property, whether you're brand new to it, or you've been involved in property for a couple of years and you have a portfolio already, I'd suggest to consider joint ventures. There's lots of ways to do them, lots of ways to kind of structure them to make it kind of right for you in your situation, but they can add some fantastic opportunities to your potential portfolio and potential growth as well. Number 8 is contingency budgets. So important to make sure you have a contingency budget with your property portfolio or development if you're doing developments. I see people getting started in property with nothing, and that's absolutely fine. Again, when I started, I didn't have a great deal to get kind of started in property, so I did take a few more risks with properties. I didn't have the contingency budget that I'd kind of certainly aim to have now with any properties that we kind of buy. But there's always the opportunity, there's always a situation that might arise where a boiler goes down. You have some maintenance that comes out of the blue that you need to do on a property. And the difficulty is that if you don't have any contingency budget, that can really scupper your plans, not only for growth, but it can really also hinder that particular property. So if a property gets damaged or isn't getting maintained, the tenants aren't going to want to live there, they're not going to want to pay the rent, they're going to move out, you're going to have void periods, arrears, and it just becomes a bit of a vicious cycle. So especially when you get growth thrown into that mix as well, people grow their portfolios very quickly, lose sight of that contingency budget, and then they maybe have 5, 10, 20, 30 plus properties and with no contingency budget. So if a couple of properties are vacant at the same time, or have tenants arrears at the same time, or have large maintenance bills at the same time, it can be very damaging to a portfolio, very damaging to yourself as an investor. So have that contingency budget, make sure you're covered if some maintenance works are needed, make sure you have a contingency budget if you're doing a refurbishment, so you're not reliant upon the quote that you've been given on day one. You've got something in the kind of the background, if it were, in case of incidental kind of costs or unknowns, and it'll just give you a lot more confidence when you're doing those deals and give you a lot more security as well, growing that portfolio. Number 9 is planning your exit. This is something we do now on every single deal that we consider. I didn't do it at the beginning stage because I didn't really have that experience. I didn't know it's as important as it is, and certainly it's something we, as we said, factor into every deal now because of its importance. Your exit strategy shouldn't define what types of properties you do, but it should play a key role in maybe the locations that you look at, maybe how you structure those deals, so whether you buy in a personal name, a limited company, what type of finance you get on it. So although it's not the key deciding factor as to whether that deal works or not, understanding your exit strategy is so important, even if that's in 30 years time, or whether it's a year's time, 5 years time. Just trying to have some form of understanding of what you're planning on doing with that property, whether it's selling it, whether it's refinancing it, whether it's keeping it and passing it into a trust or whatever it might be. There will be an exit at some point, and you just need to kind of understand what your kind of plans are with that particular property. It will just help you structure those deals so much better, and you'll make a lot more money in those deals because from a finance aspect, from an accountancy aspect, you've taken all that kind of consideration on day one, and it just means the deal is a lot more kind of structured, and it should perform a lot better for you. Number 10 is, might seem a bit of a strange one, but I'd say plan your property business and your acquisitions and your portfolio growth like you're gonna disappear tomorrow, or like you're gonna go traveling tomorrow for 12 months. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of people get kind of too involved in the nitty-gritty of their portfolio, if it were. But if anything kind of happened, if they had an illness, or if they weren't able to kind of go to work the next day, or something occurred and they had to disappear for a month or two because of family or friends, they'd be in a lot of difficulty with how they've structured that portfolio, because maybe they're completely reliant on them being there to chase the rents, or to check on maintenance inquiries, or to follow up maintenance inquiries, or to find the next deal, or to go out and physically do the next refurbishment. And while you're growing a portfolio, while you're kind of being really aggressive with the growth, sometimes that's okay, sometimes that's needed to kind of be that hands-on within the portfolio and within your investment. But the sooner you can remove yourself from all of those different kind of key aspects, and you can start to build a team, start to work with those key experts, and move yourself kind of out of the business so you can work on the business rather than in the business, that is absolutely critical to building a large portfolio, because at some point in time there will become a situation or that you're not going to be able to kind of be that hands-on with your portfolio. If you can plan that very early on, and certainly before that situation arises, it's going to help you so much in the long run. And it's what we do now, and certainly what I do now, whenever we're considering a new property, whenever we're considering a new joint venture or a new kind of part of the property business, that is certainly a kind of key consideration to how I structure it, to what I look for, to make sure that I'm not kind of required effectively to run that particular property or investment on a day-to-day basis. So the sooner you can move out the investment or move out of being kind of hands-on with that investment, I'd say is the better. So plan like you're not going to kind of be able to work on it tomorrow and ongoing. Number 11 is never be afraid to look stupid. Again, this might seem a bit of a strange one, and it kind of goes back to kind of asking for help whenever you need it. But something that I really do see now is, because we speak to so many investors and so many sellers and developers on a regular basis, there's a lot of people that when they're doing a particular deal, they want to be kind of seen or perceived as, whether it's an expert or whether they're a buyer or a seller, not kind of giving too much information away, that they don't ask any questions. They don't want to be kind of perceived as looking stupid or saying the wrong thing or asking the wrong question or doing the wrong thing, that they kind of don't do anything at all. The problem with that is that property is a asset like anything else. It has risks, it has kind of ups and downs, but it's also very expensive. It's a lot of money that you've got at kind of risk. So when you're investing in property, if there's anything you're unsure of at all, whether it's a particular deal or a particular kind of location or a particular strategy, ask the question. Don't be afraid to look stupid, ask as many questions as you need, and that will really stop you from making the mistakes and entering property deals that you maybe wouldn't have done if you'd known a little bit more about it, or buying in areas that you wouldn't have done if you'd known a little bit more about them as well. So don't be afraid to look stupid, ask as many questions as you need. And number 12, finally, to kind of round it up, all the experience that I've got, the decade plus of, as we mentioned, buying property as a property investor, being a landlord as a buy-to-let kind of owner, and being a property mentor as well, by speaking to a number of clients over the last sort of 4 or 5 years as I've been doing the property training and the mentorship side of the business. One thing I'd always say that goes along with all the other kind of things that we've mentioned in this video is trust your instinct. And that's because property, like any business, is people. So you're dealing with vendors, you're dealing with investors, you're dealing with mortgage brokers, refurbishment teams. If for any reason at any time you're dealing with somebody that you just can't quite understand why, but you don't trust them, or you don't think it's going to go to plan, or you don't think it's the right deal or the right location, trust your instinct. Trust what you feel is right at that point in time. Combine that with all the other kind of tips and stuff that we've looked at in this video. Hopefully that kind of 10 years of experience making those mistakes, speaking to all of the people in the industry that I have done, doing the deals that I have done, hopefully that can give you some experience, some kind of confidence in going out there and doing your next property deal. If there's any questions on this video, please feel free to ask, put them in the comment section below, send me an email. I'm always kind of happy to help. Hopefully this video has been helpful for you, and I look forward to catching you on the next one. All the best, take care. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this content and you'd like to join our free online property training course, we've got a link for it on this page. And in there we cover a range of different property strategies to help you get started, either building a long-term property portfolio or creating a cash-flowing property business. We also look at ways to increase your return on investment with any of the property you're maybe considering. And we also have a couple of cheat sheets and downloadable documents in there as well. Simply click on the link to join the free training course today.